Hello and welcome to the York Creators Podcast. My name is Ben Porter, and each week you can join me as I chat to someone from York's creative community. This week's guest is Hannah Davies. Hannah is a theatre maker, writer and multi-slam winning spoken word artist. She's the director of Common Ground Theatre, an associate artist at Say Out, and has a PhD by creative practice in playwriting from the University of York. In this episode we chat about the importance of repetition in creative work, allowing yourself the freedom to find your own voice, the importance of remaining curious, and how she approaches the periods in between work. So Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
So tell me what it's like to be a theatre maker and a spoken word artist in York at the moment.
It's a really fun time to be both of those things, I think. Spoken word is something that I'm relatively new to, and I've recently become an associate artist at Say Out, who are the leading spoken word organisation in York. And they've started going from strength to strength really and programming some really big names. So it's really nice to start having those kind of artists coming in to the city and also being a part of, that community and getting to perform and be part of it. It's a really exciting time, I think, for York.
So what is it that draws you to those two things in particular?
Well, theatre making, I've been doing that for a long time. So I trained as an actor originally, and then sort of moved into playwriting more. So I've always had a performance background, but spoken word, I think I got drawn to that because of the nowhere to hide element, I think.
Okay.
I think there's something really interesting and compelling about people. Just, it sort of strips everything away. It strips all the sort of facade of theatre and everything away. So it's just person and narrative and audience. So it's like the real bare essentials of storytelling, and I find that really exciting. And I never get bored of seeing people step up to that, even if they're not that good or whatever. It's something about someone owning their story and standing up, pushing through whatever anxiety or tells them they shouldn't be telling it, and telling it. I find that really, really interesting, compelling and moving to watch.
It's like when you get a really big artist who usually has a huge band and then you just see an acoustic performance, and it's like, it can be so powerful.
Yeah, it's really, I think it's just the sort of stripping away. I think we live in a world that's kind of quite mass produced, and I think there's something really powerful, engaging about simple storytelling, whether that's sort of simple songwriting or just delivering story simply is fascinating to me.
So what makes a good story for you?
Well, everybody talks about it all the time. Authenticity, I think, particularly in spoken word. There's no point getting on stage and trying to be another artist. Well, with any art, really. You've got yourself, haven't you? And you have to feed it through yourself. So, I think authenticity is a really good starting point. And a need to tell the story, something that you have to work out through telling it. You want to see someone who's telling a story, whether that's a character or a storyteller or whatever, like finding those moments of choice or danger or uncertainty within the story and sort of moving beyond that. So there has to be a sort of polarity of where they begin when they start telling it and where they end when they finish telling it. So that movement, that sweep from sort of one state to another is important.
So if you look back on the various things that you've done, is there a particular point where you thought, yes, this is definitely what I want to do with my life? Or has it kind of been a gradual sort of, I'll do a bit of this, bit of that, and it just keeps leading on to more things?
I think I always knew that I wanted to write stuff down and make stories from quite a young age, I think. And I've sort of dithered around it in lots of different ways. I think I always sort of kind of come back to it, like I've obviously trained to be an actor and a performer of stories. And that was interesting for a while. And then I went into writing and crafting my own stories from a dramatic point of view. And that's been really interesting as well. So I don't think there's ever been like one moment of like, ta-da. Or maybe when I did start doing spoken word stuff, that was probably the most like that moment I've had, just because the sort of shedding of extraneous stuff, it's just like, it's just you telling a story, like, coming back to what I was saying before.
Did you realise that at the time, or is that now looking back?
I think I kind of did it, looking back I think, but I think I did it out of curiosity as well, and I think that's a really important thing for any artist and maker and creator. You have to, if you don't come from something from like, what happens if I do that?
Yeah.
That curiosity, that sort of playfulness is like a spark of creativity. And I definitely came to spoken word from that. I was like, I can write, I can perform. Like, what would happen if I just, mash those things together? And I've done solo shows before, like, as a theatre-y person from a sort of more theatre angle, but I'd never really sort of owned. I think the self takes a great role within spoken word. You have to own yourself in order to tell yourself and share yourself.
Sure.
And I guess I was just ready to do that at that point in my life.
Yeah, the playfulness thing is quite interesting because that's similar to what I thought about launching a podcast, because
Yeah.
I've never really been in front of the camera before. I was always behind, and the rare time that I'd have to be in front of it, I was terrible. And I was like, okay, right, I need to learn, I need to do something to get myself past that. So just going to commit to doing an episode every week. And
I think that's really
it'll
important. And it sort of pushes you beyond your comfort zone, doesn't it? Nothing interesting happens unless you feel a bit nervous about it, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, can I be a spoken word artist? Oh, I guess I can. Can I do a podcast? You know.
Yeah.
And sort of just delicately pushing at those boundaries as a creator, because otherwise, you've made one thing, you'll never dare make another thing because you might not get it right, and then
and that's the thing, you have to keep pushing yourself because no one else is going to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's self-flagellation, like, come on. Yeah, and it's like, once you lose that playful spark, you don't have much left, do you? You become one of those bitter artists, and I suppose that you kind of peaks and flows.
So do you find that there's particular themes that you return to in your work?
Yeah, definitely. You always come back to sort of exploring things from slightly different angles or different perspectives. I think my themes are being a woman, what it's like to be a woman in the world, being a mother, definitely, and also sort of there's not necessarily like conceptual themes, but there's like sniffs of atmospheres that you kind of find yourself trying to recreate or replace, or some characters that I write. When I write stuff, especially when I'm writing dialogue, it's like I can't write when I'm listening to music. I often listen to music to kind of imagine a world, but then when I actually sit down to write it, I'll never listen to music because I can't actually hear what's to be written. So it's like I hear it. Like, that sounds really wanky, doesn't it? It's like, oh, I hear the word, it comes through me, but I have to hear the phrase and the way people talk in my head. But then often, I'll read a character back and I go, oh God, that sounds like, the character from that play 5 years ago or whatever I wrote before. And then you kind of, I think when you really start off as a writer, that used to really irk me, and I used to find that annoying, and I'd be like, oh, I'm just writing the same stuff all the time, or I'm just obsessed with the same things. But I think as you continue to do it for some time, and especially from working with teaching playwrights as well, when I taught playwriting at the university, I could see them all fighting against that. It's like, oh, but this is just like, the stuff that I wrote before. But actually, the more you do it, you kind of realise that that's where your artistic voice is. It's really important to just be okay with that. Yeah,
repetition's really important as well. Like if you learn anything, you need to do it quite a few times before you're good at it. Like we were talking a bit before about singing practice. Like people who never sung before, you're not just going to immediately be able to sing. You got to try it and be rubbish at it and get better and better. Yeah,
exactly. You have to put the muscle memory in and get it down there. And I guess it's the same with sort of imaginative muscle memory, isn't it? Like you have to, maybe one day you'll write that perfect scene or the perfect atmosphere, the perfect sniff of a character. Actually, Pinter, I don't know why I'm bringing Pinter into it, but I know for a fact that Pinter, I've spotted phrases within some of his plays. I can't remember now, I could go and do the research, but there's definitely some phrase about going into a brothel and then getting blown out in bubbles or something. And he uses it in more than one play, definitely. The same image, like exactly the same. I think, wow. And once I spotted that, I was like, oh, that's quite cool, actually. If he can do it, it's fine for me to, always be writing about being a woman or a mother or whatever.
Yeah. Filmmakers do it too. They leave little Easter eggs in different films which link things together, which I always think is really interesting.
It's really cool, isn't it? And then if you're like a big fan of someone, and that's the other thing, like if you think about it from the other perspective as somebody who enjoys art and consumes it in whatever way that is, and you have your favourite artists or filmmakers or songwriters, and the things they keep returning to is why you love them. Yeah. And yet as an artist, we're so quick to sort of punish ourselves for that.
So what are you working on at the moment?
I've got loads of things kind of bubbling away, all at various different stages of fruition. So I just finished writing a play, which is going into its next phase of development. So that was a play called Maiden Speeches, which is about the central character is an MP, and it follows her journey from being newly elected to preparing to stand up and address the House of Commons for her maiden speech, which is where the title of the play comes from. And then surrounding her story is lots of different fragments of sort of vignette characters, or mostly women, who within her constituency all kind of going through similar versions of preparing to stand up and speak out or own their kind of voice or in some way. So it's a sort of a dissection of a state of the nation, dissection of gender politics with a hint of sort of politics with a big P in there as well. So that's the main piece that I'm currently trying to get onto the stage. So we're pushing that. It's in a development with Tara Finney Productions in London. So yeah, we're charging that onto the stage. Another one, so the theatre company that I run has been quite silent for a couple of years. It's sort of been through a bit of a fallow period, partly because I've been doing lots of spoken word and stuff, partly because the guy I run it with moved away, so it's currently going through regeneration. So we're really excited to be working on a new piece with that, which is Dave Jarman's new show, his first solo show, and that's been directed by Ruby Clark, who works at Sheffield Theatres. So they're working on that, and we're kind of bringing that to fruition over the next couple of months. And we're working with Young Thugs, in association with Young Thugs, who are going to host the first performance of that. And we're hoping to get more theatre at the Hovel and the South Bank Club with them as well.
That'd be cool. It's a really cool venue.
Yeah, it's really good. So much potential for it. So it's like, as soon as I went there, I was like, theatre? Yes, let's put some stuff in here. And they obviously have like really big gig following and stuff. But I think there's an interesting collision point as well between theatre, spoken word and gig stuff. I don't think people necessarily can always need to distinguish between those three things now. It's quite interesting if you mash them up as well. Yeah.
And it always gives people something to talk about, which then brings more people back into it. Like when the Howl and Home did that gig in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. That was amazing. It was like, what? This is nuts. Yeah, there's an absolute theatrical experience with surrounded around again. Yeah, and why don't we programme a piece of theatre and then put a band on afterwards? We should be doing that. That's cool.
So what's something you've learned that you wish you knew 5 or 10 years ago?
So many things. What, creatively?
Yeah.
I'll probably say the most important thing that I've learned: do it yourself and make stuff that you want to see. Allow yourself to do it good enough. Allow your first drafts or first attempts to be good enough, not perfect. I think. Yeah,
that's an important thing, because I always find writing anything, whether it's words or music or something, if you try and edit while you write, it just kills it.
Yeah, it's like knowing those two different parts of your brain, isn't it? And learning how to switch off the critic and just go, right, shut up whilst I write this imperfect sprawl. Yeah. But then also saying, don't, as you're telling it to shut up, you're also saying, like, I'm going to invite you back later and we'll have a conversation when I need to get critical about this. And it's learning which part of your brain you're using for which part of the process. Yeah. Again, it's muscle memory, isn't it? You have to do it so many times and then you work out and you're like, oh, right, okay, yeah, so it is quite useful, that part of me that tells me that I'm shit and I'm not good enough. It's not useful for when you're trying to create a first draft, but when you're on your third or your fourth, like, actually, scrutiny is good at that point.
So something I've been thinking about recently is how to manage those sort of in-between periods between work, because you must get this working on projects and things like that. So you have these periods when you're working all the time and you're rushing like mad to get something produced, and then there's like a bit of a period in between. And there's a difficulty of kind of falling into a trap of thinking like you're being really unproductive there. But obviously you need that to kind of refresh yourself and take in new ideas and inspiration and things. How do you approach those periods and what kind of things do you do?
I don't know. I get, it's really hard. It's like feast or famine, isn't it? You've got loads of stuff on, you feel like really buzzy and alive and inspired and excited, and then you get like crash, like, oh, there's nothing. And yeah, I suppose I try to remind myself. I'm not very good at managing it, to be honest. I think I am a bit moody, and I get very like catastrophic about it. It's like, right, that's it. That's it. It's finished. It's all done. Nothing interesting is ever going to happen again. We're never going to find that buzz. But again, it comes back to the curiosity and the playfulness. Like, there'll be something somewhere that sparks you. But also, I think it's really important to allow yourself to rest and learn how to rest and make yourself rest, because you can't expect a field to be giving out crops all the time. At some point throughout the year it has to just chill out and be on its own and regenerate in some way. And I think thinking about it that way, just going, right, you have to learn to accept that you can't be on output all the time. If you're open to ideas and you want to make stuff and create stuff, the ideas will find you. If you but you can't all the time.
Yeah.
You're mental, aren't you?
Definitely. Do you find there's any things in particular that you find helpful in that? Like, are you someone that meditates, or do you listen to a lot of music? Do you watch or consume stuff other people make?
Yeah, that kind of thing. I suppose going for a walk is always good. Doing something totally different, like engaging with a different art form that you're not trying to achieve something in is always useful. Reminding yourself of the people that inspire you. Yeah, listen to music, podcasts.
So coming back to York, what's one thing that you do to improve the creative scene in York?
I think York's really good at doing art tourism, tourist art, and I think they forget about, the bigger institutions forget about the scene of the sort of more grassroots DIY scene that's here. So I think if there was one thing that I could do, I'd probably get those two worlds to speak to each other and find a way of communicating and a way of using what's here to feed into, like, kind of join those two stratas together, I think.
Yeah. What would that look like? Would that be a festival? Would that be networking? Would it be a whole series of things?
I think it's about artist engagement and development. I think more artist development needs to happen in York, investing in artists rather than buildings or festivals. And I don't know, it's all good, that stuff, but essentially artists need chance to take risks, don't they, in a supported way. And I think festivals are often just another way of sort of commercially programming and putting pressure on artists, when actually sometimes they just need a bit of a development time. And if there's institutions and in the city that have the ability to do that, they should be doing more of it, I think. I think you forget, I don't know, I've never worked inside an arts organisation as like a big one, but I think people very quickly forget what it's like to be a freelancer,
So if people are interested in spoken word and they don't really know where to start, what would you recommend? What's the rabbit hole you could send them down where they'll come out with something really interesting?
I'd say go to a live performance. I think there's a lot of stuff online for spoken word now, which is great, but I think the true power of it is live stuff. I think that's what I enjoy most. So I'd say go to an open mic, go to one of Sayouts events that we've got coming up.
Is that every week, or is that
sort of once a month?
Okay.
Yeah, kind of once a month-ish. And then we've got the Clash of the Champions Slam, which is in July. So yeah, go and see some live stuff, people doing it live, and then go to an open mic and just have a go. Like, what have you got to lose? Worst things worst, you sort of struggle through 3 minutes, you get dry mouth, your knees will shake, you'll feel like a dick, and then it'll be over. And then next time you do it, it will be slightly less hard, and build it up slowly. But I think yeah, have a go, tell your story. What that's what stories are for, and if you've lived it, you've got a right to tell it, I think.
And if people want to see more of your work, where should they go?
They should go to my website and follow me on Facebook and look at all my social media channels. Actually, what they should do, they should come to the Great Yorkshire Fringe. We've got a showcase of Common Ground, that's my theatre company's work, like a scratch night. So that'll be a bit of Dave's new show and some poems that I'm working on, which have been written as commissions. So they got auctioned off at a fundraising event that I did for IDAS, the Independent Domestic Abuse Services in York. So I auctioned off some poems. 3 people bought them, so I've got 3 bespoke poems to write at the moment, which I'm working on. And I'm going to do like a short set and sort of present them back to the people who won them. So that'd be a really nice way to come and see some good spoken word as well.
Great. Is the info for that publicly available?
That'll be on the Great Yorkshire Fringe, free fringe, because it's the free fringe which is being set up at 1331.
Okay, cool.
I think it's the Monday the 23rd of July.
All right, we can put links in the description so people can click through.
Yeah, I don't think there's a link yet, but I'll find it.
All right. And if they want to get in touch, what's the best way to say hi?
Just say hi on Twitter, or they can contact me on my website, contact me form. Yeah.
Perfect.
Or on Facebook.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast.
No worries. Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.